Welcome back to another episode of Picking Up the Pixels RPG Love. I'm your host, Boston, and joining me as always is Musum.
Hello.
It's the end of the year here. Made it through 2024. And we're going to, instead of our usual episode here, we're going to kind of have a yearly wrap-up episode here. We're going to talk about the stuff we played this year and didn't necessarily come out this year, and that's okay. But some of the RPGs we checked out this year. And then we'll talk about some of the RPGs we're looking forward to next year. Sort of looking forward to the future. And we'll see. Hopefully there's some good stuff coming out next year. We're going to alternate our lists here. So let's, Musim, why don't you start us off with whatever you got first on your list?
Okay. So I guess just some basic ground rules for how I made my list.
Mm-hmm.
For once, I did put them in order.
Oh, okay.
Um, and they are games that may or may not have come out this year, but I played this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so number 10, we're going to do Paranormal Site.
Yeah.
Um, like that was just that was one of our game club games. If you haven't listened to that episode, I mean, honestly, maybe listen to the first 10 minutes and then go play the game and then come back. But um, it's just a neat game. I thought it was very creative and the way you can look around the environments and um, how so much of the story was. They just do a lot of creative things. And while it definitely had some things that I wish they'd done a little differently or payoffs that I wish were a little more. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy the characters and I really enjoy that they went for something real different here.
Yeah, I have this on my list too, and it's largely for the same. My list is just in alphabetical order, but I enjoyed it for largely the same reasons as well. I think we talked about during the game club episode. I really appreciated that it is a visual novel that isn't 40 to 60 hours. I think I finished it in 12, something like that, and that was even me kind of making mistakes and making weird decisions and stuff like that. So it's nice to have something that's a little bit on the shorter end, and I like how it sort of played with the expectations of visual novels. So I certainly don't want to spoil anything, but I think a lot of the stuff it does with the visual novel formula, I think, is really, really, really cool. It's a neat game. I think we all kind of came away from it feeling a little bit more positive than I think I was expecting. So Paranormal Site,
Yeah.
it's cool. I like it. First game on my list is a little bit of a cheat here because it's just Dragon Quest 1 through 4. I got the bug in me for some reason this year to check out the origins of the Dragon Quest series, which I had never played before. I think before this I'd played 5 and 8 and 11 and 9 a little bit. I don't remember if I finished that. But and I never finished 4. I sort of fizzled out on that, no pun intended. But really, really enjoyed 1 through 3 way more than I think I was expecting to, especially 1. I thought I would kind of be frustrated with the limited scope on that one. But having a kind of really old school RPG where you're just playing as one single party member out on a big adventure, I thought was really captivating. I think 2 was probably my least favorite out of those. I think I was a little bit frustrated. I eventually never finished that because the end of that game would have had so much grinding, and I was just gonna move right on to 3. But man, 1 and 3 are really, really something special. I'm really looking forward to kind of digging my teeth into the HD2E remake. Hopefully that turns out really solid. But yeah, Dragon Quest 1 through 4 still pretty cool. I'm hoping the HD2E remakes of the first 3 games come out well, because I think that could be, I'm just like the pixel remasters for Final Fantasy. it'd be nice to say, just go pick these up and go play them. This is kind of the place you want to start. It'd be nice to have like one avenue with no caveats, no like, well, this version's great except for this, or this one doesn't have that sort of thing. It'd be nice if you could just say, pick this up, go crazy. All right, what do you have next on your list?
So next on my list is a game that I don't think I'm going to talk about a whole lot, which is Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have not pulling back the curtain. We have not recorded that Game Club game episode yet.
Right.
And I'm not super far in this, and this is me including this on my list, hopefully, because I've really only made it through the first episode, a little ways into the second.
Mm-hmm.
I so far, to keep my opinion light, I don't like it as much as True Colors, but
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to gauge Life is Strange off the first episode.
Right.
Some of them come out swinging pretty hard that first episode, and some of them take a little bit to
Right.
kind of warm up.
And
Uh,
man, True Colors, that's just a 10 out
yeah.
of 10. Like, that's a hell of a game, man.
I, I mean, it's not fair of me to expect them to
Right.
eclipse that game. That is such a good
Right.
game.
Yeah.
So I'll just, on the screen right now, you can see like this is from the first chapter where they're kind of opens and you're exploring this area, and it's a cool little character building moment. Even if, well, anyway, we'll talk about my feelings on Game Club. So go see the Game Club game,
Right. Yeah. Check out November's
and
Game Club episode for the
yes,
full spoiler-filled details.
yes. So Boston, what's your next one?
My one is the one that probably both of us will talk about a little bit here, and that's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the 100-something hour epic. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Um,
Well, not to be a Debbie Downer, it did not make my list.
yeah, I don't think you finished it, right?
I am burnt out on mini games, so
Yeah.
it's actually deleted off my hard drive. I may someday go back, but don't hold your breath. I'm
Yeah.
probably going to play Dragon Age and Unicorn Overlord before I go back to this.
Right. I this is the further we get to the end of the year, the more that I'm thinking about how I feel about the games I've played this year, and thinking about the potential inclusion of any of these games in my top 10 list, and how do I feel with the luxury of having a little bit of time away from some of these games. Do I feel more positively about them? Do I feel a little bit cooler about them after time? And I'm really struggling with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I I like a lot of this game, especially from a storyline perspective.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm one of the few people that actually likes the ending of it. I know that it has like such a mixed reception. I'm obviously not going to go into it here. The Nimp and I did a spoiler cast over on TVGP for that this year, which is just shy of 3 hours long. It is a very lengthy, and we were moving through that game. Like we were booking through some of the story beats. Um, there's just so much of it. There's so much open world stuff. There's so many mini games, and like one of the parts that really frustrated me is, the further you get in the game, and you're getting pretty late in the game, and you're in one of the pretty late chapters, and I'm like, all right, yeah, we're getting some good momentum here, sure. More mini games. It's just like, God, bro, guys, come on,
Man.
please. Like, it's just a game that, sort of true to the original Final Fantasy VII, just has a pacing problem. You hit a real good patch, and you're like, all right, yeah, we got some revelations, we got some cool dungeons here, we fought some great boss battles, and then it just kind of comes to a screeching halt here every once in a while. It's just a lot of it is really good, and the parts that aren't good are either bad, like that one Kate Sith dungeon, or just kind of frustrating, like a lot of the mini game diversions. So it's I wish I was coming here with a clearer answer of like, this is where it's going to go on my top 10 list. I'm still putting that decision off as long as I can, but like, it's just such a uneven game in the way that a lot of AAA games aren't necessarily. It's just this weird thing. All the Final Fantasy VII stuff is just weird, and this continues that that pattern, and I still still don't know how to feel about it. So,
It feels like it to me. It felt like a game that didn't know its strengths,
mhm,
and like a Dragon Age Inquisition situation where they
right,
panicked and put as many mini games in there despite the quality of them.
right,
And I adore Dragon Age Inquisition,
yeah,
but
ditto,
I don't think anyone can argue against that. That game has a massive amount of bloat, and
yeah,
a lot of that is because the studio just had no perspective about what people would like about that game, and they were afraid of every piece of criticism they'd ever received.
right,
Um, and I feel like if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth had, say, only mini games at maybe the Golden Saucer and got rid of
right,
90% of the rest of the mini games, like it'd be a much shorter game, but it would be a much better game.
yeah. It's just such a weird. It's a weird game that I liked playing. You know, the battle system is still great. The soundtrack is incredible. Like I
Oh
just
yeah.
I had very little worry about that, but just so much of it is just so weird in a way that I kind of have to respect. Where it's like, yeah, it's just weird. It's a weird game, man. But I don't know. It's it's an odd game here in the list this year. What's your next game in your list here?
Halls of Torment.
Aha, yes.
Um, I played this way too much this year not to include it. This is the Diablo heaven shooter. That's not what you call it. Why
Oh,
do I always get
bullet
this
heaven.
name?
Yeah,
Bullet Heaven.
yeah.
Thank you. And I adore this game. Like I've unlocked most of everything in it, and it's a different. It's just it's very similar to Vampire Survivors, but at the same time, it's so very different because
Hmm.
the levels are a little bit harder. There's like interesting kind of story elements as you go through. Um, the unlock system is real cool. You can unlock
Yeah.
stats to increase and things like that. You can unlock. I feel like you unlock abilities too, but that might be wrong. I feel like that's wrong. Um, it's just a really well crafted game. I'm excited for it to finally hit consoles and more people to play it. I'm excited to listen to We Rogue Like It and hear everyone's opinion there.
Thank you for the plug. I
Uh,
appreciate it. Yeah,
or maybe I should respect time. I really enjoyed the We Rogue Like It
that's right.
episodes.
That's right. Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of this as we're playing this on We Rogue Like It, and your point about it being difficult is apt because I think that's one of the things that's been surprising me is I will always remember Vinny Caravella over at Nextlander. I think really nailing what makes Vampire Survivors so fun, which is that it's a meditative experience. It's not the hardest
Mhm.
thing on the planet. Yeah, 30 minutes. You're gonna kind of chill. Like you. I feel like meditative is the best way of putting that game. Um, this really is that. This is not that game at all. This is a much more difficult game. It will very happily kind of overwhelm you and really challenge you, but I don't really think that's a negative. I think it's cool to see so much variation in this subgenre and see people doing it's not just hey, this looks like Diablo 1, haha. It's like no, this is a pretty different game overall.
Yeah, yeah. And and by the way, this thing will auto aim for you if you just want to hit the one stick.
Yeah.
Um, you've really got to level up quite a bit for it to even approach kind of the meditative state of Vampire Survivors, but most of the time you are like kind of a little bit on the edge of your seat with this thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Oh
But
yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Halls of
so
Torment. That's cool. I like that game.
so what is your next game?
My next game is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Oh yeah.
Um, a another 100 something hour JRPG. This one I really loved. Um, I It was really interesting to see where they were gonna take the series. You know, the previous games, or sorry, the previous game, Yakuza Like a Dragon, was a pretty big storyline departure from the previous games in a way that I don't really want to spoil. Um, but it was really interesting to see them kind of take that and take the next step here and tell Kiryu and Ichiban's story at the same time, and then kind of have them diverge and cross back and you know tell a story in Japan and Hawaii at the same time in a way that I thought worked out much better than I was really expecting it to. I think the game, as much as I really loved it, I think it does stumble quite a bit at the end. Like the very last chapter, I think has a number of problems that I to dive into them would just be to spoil the entire story. Um, but I think everything else in here is really great. I think, comparing this to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the Yakuza games are just as stuffed, if not more stuffed, with mini games and side missions and another island to go build like an Animal Crossing game, and the Pokemon stuff, the Sujimon League stuff. It has all of that stuff in there, but I feel like the Yakuza and Like a Dragon games do a much better job of balancing that stuff and sort of like, oh, you got to do a little bit of it to get introduced, but then you're kind of back into the open world and story stuff. And if you want to spend 30 hours doing your Animal Crossing on, you definitely can. That you can absolutely do that. Or if you want to spend 30 minutes on it and never do it again, you can absolutely do that too. And I think that's where these games really shine. I think is that, like I've always praised them for, is that balancing between here's a really goofy side story that's probably going to make you laugh, and then here's the high drama kind of main story stuff. And balancing that is still really great, and then kind of balancing um, the legacy of these games. I think they did a really really great job, and kind of furthering the turn-based battle system that they introduced in the previous one. I think is really really great. I think still really shines, and a lot of the quality of life stuff they introduced in this, of just moving your characters around just a little bit on the field, I think did a lot to make these games feel even better. So this is cool. These games are great. They announced one where you get to play as Majima as a pirate in Hawaii with amnesia. Great. I'm 100% in for when that comes out. I think it comes out in February or something. So these games are super good. I can't recommend them enough, and I'm very, very, very curious to see what they're going to do for the next one here.
A quick question
Yeah.
that probably isn't relevant to this podcast, but
Oh,
it
sure.
might be. Have you watched the TV show yet?
Not yet. I'm kind of. I think there's a at time of recording. I think there's a couple of episodes out. Feedback so far seems to be, yeah, it's okay. It's pretty good. So I'm hoping to sit down and watch some of that, because it doesn't seem, the initial impressions have not been, please God don't watch this, it's a trash fire, like none of that. So I'm curious to see how they're gonna adapt any of that into real life. I'm deathly curious, but so far people seem to like it quite a bit. So I'm anxious to check it out.
Okay.
All right, what's your next game on the list?
Quantum Break.
Oh,
If you remember last Christmas break, I played through everything until I got to Alan Wake 2. Um, so Quantum Break, honestly, this game kind of blindsided me. For whatever reason, I missed that most people actually liked this game.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really good. And
Yeah.
you know, it's oh, I'm not gonna remember the actor's name that passed away
Oh,
this year or
Lance
last
Reddick.
year. Lance Reddick,
Yep.
he is a fantastic character in it.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the guy who plays Iceman, I think, does great in it. Which I know when
Yep.
it came out, that was my initial like issue with it. Is I was like, I was mad about the portrayal of Iceman in that movie, which really is not that actor's fault.
Right. Right.
Um, he did what they hired him to do. It's not his
Right.
fault. He's not an X-Men. They weren't X-Men comic fiends like I am. But
Right.
um, it, man, I don't know what to say. Like this is just a tight, like 12-hour game where it is real good action, and whenever you hit a part that maybe is harder than it should be, just lower the difficulty and
Yep.
move on with your life and
And
enjoy
as
the
a
weird
whole,
little,
like TV show inside of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
which you can't stream anymore. You got to download, but that's okay. All our games are 100 gigs to
That's
download now
true.
anyway.
At least it's still available instead of just being like, yeah, we don't have this anymore. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, hopefully it's not lost to time. Like hopefully maybe like limited run or someone just is like, here's the whole game on a disc in
Oh,
a
true.
fancy
Yeah.
box or something.
Right.
But anyway, I really like this one. And if you ever decide to go and play everything Remedy Alan Wake related, then you should probably include this in it, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't directly tie in, but there are obvious nods back and forth between this game and Alan Wake,
Right. Right.
with obviously the trailer for Alan Wake in the game. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's true. That's true. I'm
but
gonna skip a couple games here on my list because we're gonna get to them at some point because I know they're gonna be on your list here. But next game here is Remnant 2,
mm,
which is a game I played and I didn't beat this year. I played it with my good friends Bill Zaferd and the Hannah. We were playing this 3-player like we played the first one. We eventually kind of petered out on this. Not really the game's fault. I think it was more of like we kind of got distracted and started playing something else, and then we just kind of never got back to it. Even though
mm,
I think we were like 90% of the way through the game. Um, it's really great. It is. I really liked the first Remnant. I think if you're interested in Remnant 2, you should check out the first one too. That game is really great. Try to play with at least one other person if you can. I think it really shines co-op. I think it turns into a much different game. Um, Remnant 2 is largely, I hate to be this reductive, but like it's largely the first game just kind of bigger and better. And if you liked the first game's kind of shooting light Dark Souls thing that it did, I think you'll find even more stuff to like in here. Um, I think for me, part of the frustrations of this game weren't necessarily the base game stuff. There's a lot of like revisiting, going to a purple zone where you're kind of going in between areas. I think the lack of clarity in some of that stuff was a bit frustrating. But I think overall, I had a lot of fun with it. There's more weapon types, there's more character classes. Combining two character classes together, I think is really really cool, and I think that that made this game really really shine. I It's cool. I don't really I have too much bad to say about it other than like, hey, go check it out. Play the first one first. Try and you know play these with a friend if you can, and check them out. They're great. They're cool. I like them.
yeah, I really got to play this one.
Yeah. What's next on your list?
Wanted Solace at World's End.
Oh yeah.
Um, this was a game I played for, I don't remember, 30 or 40 hours or something like that, and kind of petered out on it. But I still played it for quite a bit and enjoyed it. Um, it is a turn-based kind of cyberpunkish game where you go into someone's mind to remove their desires, and it's a voluntary process. Um, and kind of early on in the game, you enter someone's mind, and something foreign is in the mind that kind of attacks you and sends an enemy at you, and then there's a reoccurring thing throughout. But you go into different cities, and you see like each city has like a bounty board and things like that where you get jobs, and you kind of go through like a little short tactics game. To me, where the game really shines is that you create all your own skills. Like you have three or four elements you kind of meld together, and they're not like components that you lose. So at any point, you can disassemble and reassemble them into a different skill with different kind of effects on them. Um, and it's a lot of fun kind of coming up with interesting ways to kind of abuse that system and then go and earn money and things like that. It's just a little long in the tooth is kind of the problem I think I have
Mm,
with it.
right.
And it's gotten, it's very grindy, but at the same time, mostly you're in a 10 or 15-minute mission. Um,
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thought sounded the coolest when you were playing it is kind of there's a lot of game there, and you might need to kind of grind a little bit here and there, but you're not getting into these like 30, 60, 90 minute back and forth battles. Like they're pretty snappy affair that I think that sounds really appealing because I think when you look at these grid-based tactics RPG SRPG sort of things, it's always like, okay, am I gonna do like 15v15? I'm gonna be in this battle for 45 minutes and that sort of thing. And I thought it was cool. That's like, no, they're not nearly that long.
yeah. It, it's just a really cool game. Like it's not, I think it's like $20 or $17 or something like that.
Mm.
So like if you like turn-based RPGs and kind of crafting things that you use in a game, then I can't recommend it enough. And it's probably a game I'll eventually go back to. But anywho, Boston, what's next on your list?
Thirsty Suitors. This is a game we checked out
Man,
uh, for Game Club this year, which actually did turn out to be a turn-based RPG. I thought it was going to be a skateboarding rhythm story thing, and it was also that, but it was also a kind of running into people in the streets and doing like a really interesting kind of buff and debuff turn-based RPG sort of thing that I thought was really interesting because I wasn't expecting it to be anything like that, and I'm not sure how I felt. This is another game this year that I really liked, but getting some distance from it, how am I going to feel about it when we do our game club ranking? I'm not entirely sure, um, but it's great to play so many games this year that are just like, look, we have a story we want to tell. We have a game we're going to make that's going to smash together a bunch of different kind of games or genres or whatever here. We're just going to make it. Like, we're going to make this weird skateboarding, story based, turn based RPG. And, we're with the skill where you can call in your mom and she's a summon. Like that sort of that sort of thing.
that's a
Um,
pretty good summon.
yeah, and I thought this was interesting because so much of the battle system turned out to be I'm going to inflict an enemy with kind of a base level debuff that they are weak to. That, like in an SMT or a Persona game, you don't know beforehand. And then once you inflict them with essentially like a status effect, then attacks that match that status effect will do more damage afterwards. And your kind of base level attacks don't really do that much damage to begin with. So it's interesting to see a lot of RPGs just don't rely on buffs or debuffs a lot because it's like, oh, well, why would I use poison? It doesn't even work on bosses. Or why should I use this? Like, it doesn't even stop the boss's big attack or anything like that. But that stuff is really core to the battle system of Thirsty Suitors. And I thought that was really neat. We usually don't get that. So, Thirsty Suitors, pretty cool. Definitely one of those unique game club games that I think we're pretty pleased to find. It's just like, yeah, I had fun, and I've definitely never played anything like that before. What's next on your list?
So this next one, I'm now hesitating on whether it's really an RPG or not, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Mini
Okay.
Shoot Adventures.
Oh man, Mini
Um,
Shoot Adventures, so good.
like that is talk about a game out of nowhere
Yep.
that I was not expecting to fall in love with like I did. Like this game is just amazing. I love
Yep.
nearly everything about it, you know. It's like the perfect length. It's crazy to me that two people made a game that is like this like level of attention to detail to
Yep.
it. It's effectively a Zelda 1-esque game where you're a little spaceship and seems to be a race of little spaceships. I'm not really clear on the logistics there.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but it's pretty cute.
Yeah. I should have thought more about how to sell this game to the audience before this podcast, but I did not. Um, this game's amazing. It's like $20. It's is an absolute blast to play. You know, it's kind of has a bullet hell aspect to it, and like to be clear, like I like the idea of bullet hells. I am terrible at them.
Hmm.
This is a game that like I was pretty decent at. Like
Yeah.
it is something a dude in his 40s can play and not have to worry about like twitching the fastest to be good at.
Right. Right.
Um, and it really kind of rewards exploration and experimenting with things and testing things out. So, anyway, that's
Yeah.
about all I got to say.
I'm trying to figure out how to uh, concisely express my love for mini shoot adventures. This is, we've been talking a lot about, how do we feel about the games we played this year? There have been some divisive titles here. I think, man, within half an hour of me playing mini shoot adventures, I was like, yep, I love this. This is
Yeah,
really, and you're right. It very much is like a kind of traditional Zelda thing in a way that I don't think I really understood before I started playing it, because that was the big selling point. Is like, it's like a twin stick shooter, but it's like Zelda. And it's like, what? How does that even work? But it really is, where you're kind of going into these dungeons and getting an item in there that not only helps you beat the boss or like get to the boss, but then that helps you get to the next dungeon in the overworld, and then you kind of rinse and repeat. Um, it's just long enough. It's just difficult enough. It never overstayed its welcome. I sort of felt like I could have played a couple more hours of it when I finished it, but I was sort of happy that there wasn't more of it, because I didn't want to kind of like ruin that experience. This is absolutely a must play for this year. It's so good. I really wish it was on more stuff, at least some consoles, because I think this would do super super well on a whole bunch of stuff. Um,
yeah,
it's really great, and you were mentioning too about kind of from the difficulties perspective. I like that they had a bunch of different difficulties, and one of the difficulties on the lower end was basically like, hey man, that's cool. I get it. Maybe you're not great at games, or maybe you're not great at these types of games. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Even all the way up to like, yeah, this thing's hard. Like this mode's really really challenging. So good luck. Um, God, Mini Shoot Adventures is so good. It's good enough that I played and got almost 100% of this game this year, and whenever it comes out on consoles, I will pick it up and play 100% of it again.
yeah.
Like
Like
without any hesitation.
like if I were doing like a true like favorite games of the year, like this would be in the contest for one of the top 5 spots.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so great. Like I just
It'd probably be number 1 or 2, honestly, for me. Like I
yeah,
really love this game.
it's one of those games
Uh,
that you would hear that and you go, yeah, I get it. So yeah, Mini Shoot Adventure is really 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 great. I've sort of forgotten about this game a little bit this year, but every time and not because it's bad, just because there's I have played so much stuff this year, um, that when I see it on my list of games that I've played this year, I'm always like, yeah, Minishoot Adventures, you're great, so
Yeah.
good. So yeah, check that out.
Yeah.
Uh, mine
Austin, what's your next one?
my next one is Unicorn Overlord, um,
Ooh.
and I really wish I had played more of this game. Um, it's really not an indication of the game's quality or anything. It's really just Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth came out, and all these other things came out that I sort of felt like I needed to play, especially for like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Is like people are wild about spoiling stuff online. I really don't want to have a game like this spoiled, so let's just let's prioritize this over some of the other stuff. Um, and then, you know, thinking about coming back to this, I'm like, oh yeah, I could play some Unicorn Overlord, but I've got this other thing to do. I've got this other thing to do, and it sort of slipped back. But it's a really cool sort of take on an SRPG. Sort of your team building, squad building sort of thing. Um, I really liked that you don't have direct control over your units. You're sort of setting up your little squadron, and how the individual units interact with each other is really how you're controlling them. So, when two squadrons attack, they're just going to do the things that they're set up to do and kind of do some rock, paper, scissors between each of the units, but also do the complementary stuff between units that work well together. And I think removing that kind of low level control, I think made it a really, really cool system. And then on top of that, I really like that the game just will let you skip battles too. It'll give you a summary of what's going to happen in the battle before the units clash. And I really like that you could just like hit the options button and skip it. And it's just like, all right, here's your XP. Let's keep moving. So you were definitely going to win that. You don't even to see it. You're good. I really liked that. So I think my only concern at the beginning was the story seemed a little bit kind of rote. The your sort of the idea of lifting the kind of mind control from some of these people at the beginning of the game seemed a little bit interesting, and I've heard from some people playing it that the story isn't really the focus. It's really the combat and the unit building and the team building and the recruitment and stuff like that. So that really seems to be the high points there. So I really liked this though. I just wish I played more of it this year, because I think I would have really liked it the longer I played it. So, and it's also fun to say Unicorn Overlord. That's just a great vanillaware title.
It's
Love
such
it.
a ridiculous name.
I love it. All right, what's next on your list?
So next on my list, which I'm sure is on your list too, is Vampire Survivors.
Yep.
Um, and at this point, I've definitely played the Castlevania DLC. Don't
Right.
don't look up my achievement. No, I haven't got to yet, but I played all the rest. Right, like this game is absolutely amazing. It is, every time, the Castlevania DLC is like $4 or $5. Like, who cares? Like, you are getting a ridiculous amount of content from the sounds of it,
Yep.
and all the other DLCs like $2. And
Right.
by the time you're listening to this, I'm sure there's a Steam sale that is reducing the cost of all of this by 50% anyway.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
like, this game is so good. Meditative is the right word, but
Yep.
it's also just, there's a sense of humor to it and an obvious love for any game that it puts in a DLC.
Yeah.
Um, and just the craftsmanship and the ridiculous of the unlocks, and yeah, you got to look some of it up to kind of speed it along, but
Right.
like it's I I don't know if I'll ever stop playing this game. Like as long as they make content for it, I'm going to
Yeah.
play it. And at some point, if they stop making content, like there's going to be a year where I say, "Yeah, screw it, I'm going to buy it on Xbox or something and freaking start over again."
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I don't know that anything I actually say.
Yeah, I still am in love with this game. I'm right there with you. I think there are not a lot of games where a piece of DLC gets announced and I'm just like, yep, racing to pre-order or racing to pick it up, or I gotta play that. Balatro for me is in a similar position for this year. Um, it's so good, and it's such a great like half an hour chunk sort of thing of just like, yeah, I've got half an hour, I'll play. Let's get a check mark for this one character I never play. Or like, let's try and unlock something in this DLC, or let's try to unlock one of the weird secrets I've never gotten around to. And then, we talked about it last month, just the ridiculous wonder of the Ode to Castlevania DLC that I'm sure at this point I'm still unlocking additional stuff on and kind of finding more to enjoy about that. It's just a game that it's exactly as it looks on the surface. Sort of is what it is on the tin, and it doesn't really need to be more. It's exactly that great, and if it never changes, great. I'll just like keep putting more weird stuff into this game, and I will keep buying it. I will keep playing it, and I will still keep having a lot of fun playing this ridiculous, wacky vampire game that doesn't have vampires in it, which is still the best joke. Um, yeah, Vampire Survivors is so good. Probably check for next year when we're probably talking about how good Vampire Survivors still is, because it's really great. Oh man. I think all of the rest of the games I have here on my list are probably things that are also on your list. So what do you have?
Okay.
What do you have next on your list? Let's see.
Well, I have three left, and I'm fairly
Okay.
certain you haven't played two of them.
Oh,
So,
okay. Let's
we'll,
hit some of the let's hit some of those then.
okay. So, number three for me is Alan Wake 2 and its DLC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alan Wake 2 is an amazing game. It is so much like the first one I love, but the first one's a little long in tooth, even for the remaster. Long in tooth is the wrong phrase. It's is not aged as well,
Right.
gameplay wise. But Alan Wake 2 is just the gameplay is good, but you're really there for the craziness of it all and the
Mm-hmm.
story and how it ties into control. Like in my opinion, you don't have to go back and replay everything. Like maybe replay, like play Quantum Break if you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely play Control and then play Alan Wake 2. I'm sure someone's done a YouTube that recaps the story of Alan Wake 1,
Oh,
which
sure. Yeah.
would probably be a decent idea so you can, like one of the DLCs in Control for Alan Wake has a lot to do with one of the levels in Alan Wake 1 where there's a therapist and none of that stuff matters, but the DLC for Alan Wake for Control is really good. But
Mm-hmm.
um, Alan Wake 2 is just a home run, and I think I heard they hadn't earned their money back. Maybe they had by now, but that is a crime against humanity.
Right.
Like it is hard for me, so you start the game and you aren't Alan Wake. So let's get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not going to remember the name of the FBI investigator, but she is fantastic. Um, she's a great character. They really flesh out this whole world really well. There's so many weird, entertaining things. Like you keep finding these weird, like chests that have puzzle locks on them, and then they have like some weird, like pagan looking wood statue or something on them or whatever. And later in the game, you find like, oh, that's just this one character. He's like one character's like, why do you keep putting puzzles on this thing? He's like, well, because it's fun. You feel better about finding the resources. It's just absolutely ridiculous stuff like that. And the
Oh,
rewriting.
Agent
Hmm?
Saga.
Say that again.
Agent
Oh yes,
Saga.
Saga.
That's her name. Yeah.
Saga Anderson.
I was just looking it up here in the video because like, man, she had such a unique name. I don't remember
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Um, the rewriting reality thing was a really cool mechanic. Whenever you play as Wake, like it's one of the things you do is you're looking for story inspiration to try and get out of the dark place.
Hmm.
So you'll encounter an area, and then you'll think, okay, I can use this as a set piece, and then you'll explore some more to try and find like a motivation or a villain or something, and then you'll go back to that area and write that thing into it, and then reality will change. And it is a very, uh, honestly, it reminds me of Soul Reaver to a degree,
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
just on that mechanic alone. Because in Soul Reaver, you would switch between realities to open or close things, and that's kind of the effect it has on Wake. It just has way more story to it, and whereas Soul Reaver's a PS1 game, so you're kind of based on you performing the controls right. Alan Wake is not like that. It's you deciding the right directions to go and the right combinations to make and surviving the level you're in. Um, but it has a ton of like full motion video in it, and all the actors kill it.
Oh yeah.
And several of the characters, I swear, are just different versions of characters um, from Quantum Break, and they touch on all the games, and it's the Control Wake universe is just amazing, and everyone should spend time in it.
Yeah, I got to get around to playing this at some point because I love Control. I liked Alan Wake 1. I liked Quantum Break. I just need to pick this up at some point and kind of dive into it.
You do. Did you ever play the Control DLC?
I think I played one of them, but I didn't play the Alan Wake DLC. And I thought I got in this trap of like, well, I want to play Alan Wake 2, but I didn't play all the DLC. I should go. I have the Control like Ultimate Edition, whatever. I could
Yeah.
just start Control back over. It's not that long, and then I know I'd want to get 100% away through that again and get all that stuff and do all the DLC. And I'm like, I should probably. I should probably just watch something, and then I will.
Yeah.
Then I can just hop into Alan Wake 2. Because I'll need to refresh my memory on the first game anyway. So,
So you
excuse me.
don't have to like. To me, the Control Alan Wake DLC gets you hyped to play Alan Wake 2, but it doesn't have any real story significance on Alan Wake 2.
Gotcha.
So you could just start Alan Wake 2 dry, but at the same time, Control, you could play that in all its DLCs, and
Yeah.
that'll be 30 or 40 hours of your time.
So
And
good.
uh, but Alan Wake 2 is, you're looking at a 12-hour game.
That's not too bad.
Um, yeah, and you'll have to replay it twice. I already say replay. You'll have to replay. You'll have to play through the game twice.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Um, and I recommend at minimum like getting the Lake House DLC. Hopefully they do like a all-in-one package
Oh,
soon. But
sure. Yeah.
like if you like survival horror and weirdness in general, like, and it's not like, well, no, okay, Alan Wake 2 is scary.
It's not like the scariest thing you've ever played, though. Like,
Right,
yeah.
right. Not it's not, and it's not like particularly like gory, but it man, it's got an atmosphere at times.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're gonna figure out like how I approach horror games a lot of the times. I just figure out where the programming walls are. Like
Right.
this game's gonna function with this set of limitations, and you can absolutely do that with Alan Wake 2, um, to kind of figure out what you're doing. But I can't sing its praises enough.
Yeah.
So, did you want to talk about one of yours, or do you want me to continue on to number two, which I don't think you've played?
Yeah. Why don't you go on to number two? Because I'm trying to figure out what I have a couple games here left on the list that I haven't played a ton of. So I want to see
Mhm.
if they're on your list that maybe you've played more of.
Yeah, like one of them I pretty sure definitely will be.
Hmm.
I'm starting to worry that I forgot something the way you're talking about these. But my number two will be the Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty DLC,
Oh yeah.
um, which is arguably better than the base game. Um, it is, they added a section of the city called Dogtown that is kind of this weird, some rich guy just sectioned off this city and this portion of the city, and that's what he owns. And it's kind of this weird, I want to call it a libertarian hellscape. Like
Right.
it reminds me of, if you've like ever read the Jason Pargin books, the Zoe Ash Chronicles.
Hmm.
The first book would be Ultraviolence and Fancy Suits, which I
That's a
don't know
great
about
title.
that first book. It is a good title. The second title I can't say on the air
Mm.
and is my favorite title, and I really enjoyed going into a bookstore and asking for it
Right.
and saying those words in that sequence. But
Right.
the second book is amazing, and the third book's pretty good. Um, but anyway, like in that book, it's a lawless city that's run by a bunch of billionaires who ignore all building codes and government requirements. So
Mm.
like buildings are just falling down and all sorts of weird, crazy things are happening. But um, so the Cyberpunk DLC has Idris Elba in it, who plays a government operative that you interact with quite a bit. And you can't access the DLC till you're nearly at the end of Cyberpunk.
Mm.
Um, but holy crap, this is so good. Like when you start the DLC, you got about like a 2 to 3 hour, like just straight up action mission. It's like you're entering Escape from New York in a way. Like a
Right.
Snake Plissken had to fight his way in and run from like a falling spaceship that's shooting at you or something. Um, it's just a real intense get into it. When you're in Dogtown, you're stuck there for a little bit, and then you're allowed to kind of go back and forth
Mm.
eventually. But it just has its own personality and characters to it. And like one of the handlers in Dogtown, you do encounter in the base game, but you never really meet, and he doesn't give you. I'm not sure if he gives you any missions. Um, but I think he might give you one or two or something like that, or maybe he gives you a mission to unlock a story mission. But it doesn't matter. His name is Mr. Hands, uh, and he's kind of a I want to say he's a fun like kind of mission giver, but maybe that's not the right way to say it.
Right.
He's just a certain kind of weird white gangster stereotype.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
using the wrong words to describe this. He's like gosh, yeah, no, I'm not gonna remember that either. It
Like
doesn't
a
matter. It doesn't
lovable
matter.
scumbag.
I He's very proper.
Oh, okay.
Um, like he's just a really like proper, adequate type who also says very bad things
Okay.
and
That's kind of fun.
like he's just a really interesting character. Like I'd be interesting to see more content with him, but um the climax of this DLC is as epic as can be and as heart-wrenching as can be. And I think there are like three endings to the DLC, and one of them will change the ending to the base game, and that is one I got to go back and do at some point. I just know
Mm.
it is going to be so heartbreaking. It's
Right.
going to it is going to be real hard to swallow to do it, but
Right.
I want to see that content. Like they made a lot of content out of it, and they do a real good job in this DLC of making a very complicated situation where there's just no moral correct direction to go when you get there.
Right.
Um, and you may say, okay, this will be the right moral way, and then you'll get there and the things will happen, and you're going to regret some of those things that happen.
Right.
Um, which, I guess this is, CD Project Red, that's their bag.
Hmm.
Um, hey, so I'll quit blabbering about this. This game is amazing. Like Cyberpunk 2077 is worth playing for this DLC alone.
Right.
I'll put it that way. So,
Man.
okay. You want me to do, you want to do one of yours, or should I do my number one, which
Yeah,
is
why don't you do your
undoubtedly one of
number
yours?
one, and if there's anything else, I can
All right.
come in after that.
My number one is Metaphor ReFantasio. Um, this is probably my favorite game of the year. I'm 60 hours into it. It is, you ever wanted, like they took Persona 5 and Persona Strikers and mashed them together and put it in a medieval time and then made the big boss fights against weird monsters from Hyrule. I can't say his first name, Bosch paintings.
Hmm.
um, this game is so freaking good. It is like the graphics, it still has kind of style that you would expect from Atlas in a Persona game, but there's like this painted aspect to the graphics that just give it its own tone. The characters are a lot of fun. You you're in medieval world, so like when you get a side quest, you have to plan your trip to go out to the side quest place, and you ride in your runner and you get social events in your runner, and sometimes you run into other contestants and their runners, and you have to
Right.
have either social interactions or fights with them, and many of them are ridiculous and hilarious, and some of them are social links, and um it's a very intuitive game, and like it, every member of your party is from a different race in the game, which some people comment on. Or maybe tribe would be actually what they say in game, but they
Oh,
have,
right.
physical differences. You have a fairy who's tiny with wings and pointed ears. You have a Hulkenberg. I forget what her race is called, but they're basically like elves with little hair on the tips of their
Hmm.
ears.
Your main
You
character's
have,
like a tribe that nobody ever sees, but they really
yes,
don't like.
the Elda. Everyone
Yep.
hates your race.
Yep.
uh, Evidently, bad luck follows. But I don't know what to tell you. The villain is basically Griffith from Berserk.
He really is. It's so good. Uh,
Like he hasn't gotten as dark anywhere near as dark as Berserk, but I mean, what does?
yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
this is another game that I really wish I had more time to play, but like this is one of those ones that I feel like when you want to play this game, you need to sit down and kind of have dedicated time to check it out. You can't just play for 15 minutes here and there and kind of dip in and out of it. Like you really need to kind of
yeah,
dedicate your time to it. I unfortunately haven't had enough time to do it, but I'm so excited to with the little bit of time that I've played it and with how many people, even people that don't typically play RPGs or even people that didn't like Persona games, they're like, "Yep, game of the year. The best RPG I've ever played. 10 out of 10, you got to play it." So like that is pretty incredible feedback.
I. It's amazing how much just changing the setting and time period of like the Persona SMT system
Right.
just allows them all this new freedom to do things you just never thought of. And like, yes, they could have done some of this in a Persona or SMT game, but like huge chunks of it you could tell like, oh, this only makes sense in this type of setting, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
um and it never even occurred to me like the Persona games are already kind of in a weird kind of, by a couple degrees off a class system game because you're
Oh, sure.
equipping your persona and gaining those things, but reducing that number of things you can change into from several hundred to, probably 30 or 40 by the game's over, I'm sure.
Mhm.
I think I'm just under like my next quest with Moore, who's the Igor equivalent, is to
Mhm.
unlock 25 classes. So I
Oh,
know I
jeez.
I don't have 25 classes yet,
Right.
but I'm pretty sure I have 20. Um,
Dang, that's a lot.
and a lot of the classes are just evolutions of previous ones, and it's a real creative class system. Like I,
Mhm.
I enjoy the earning the currency and then buying skills from other classes that you've unlocked and equipping them. Um, and then the synthesis attacks, which at the beginning of the game you're like, that is, I got to use at least turn actions to do this, and both people
Right.
lose magic points, but like at a certain point, you're going to discover those. You're going to go from, well, I could deal 200 points to this enemy, or I can deal like 900 points to this
Right.
enemy. Like there is a payoff for using that stuff, and it's a game that I don't think you have to grind in, but I've really discovered a lot of extra aspects by finding a location to grind. But I didn't even attempt to grind because of how tight the resource management was
Mm.
until I was like 50, 55 hours in. And that's just, I unlocked some skills that led me to do that. And it kind of like made me start thinking of the dungeon crawling in that game in a different light. So, like,
Right.
when you reach the Tower of Blind Faith, I recommend you just, hopefully you've unlocked. I say that you have to. By the time you reach there, you'll have the Faker and the Dancer. Dancer? I think it's a Dancer. There's a class that has something to do with dancing, and it
Mm.
may be called the Dancer. It may not. Um, but once you get those classes at the same time, you will have some regenerative options that will enable you to kind of grind. And you can grind by not even engaging in the turn-based combat and just running around enemies and hitting a bunch of guys. And because when you can kill 30 or 40 skeletons in a level in like 5 minutes and just do that a few repetitions in a row, you're going to discover you can knock out the beginning levels of a lot of like job classes for a
Right.
lot of your characters. Um, anyway, I adore this game. I am excited to see where it's going to go. Um, I I cannot imagine the world where this game, you know, just falls on its face at the end or
Right. Right.
something, like I think at this point it could even have a bad ending and it doesn't matter because I love the camaraderie and the characters and I love the planning your trip aspect in this so much. And
Right.
you know, it's going to take you 8 hours to get to the real game like any, freaking Atlas Persona style
That's
game.
right.
But
Any Atlas JRPG, it's gonna take you a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
but this is I'm in the middle of it, so I don't have the perspective to say this is like their best game yet. But that is my current feeling in playing it. And I may, once I beat it and I get some distance from it, I will have a more sober perspective on that.
Hmm.
But as is, if you like turn-based RPGs and you like medieval stuff, you should get this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Another game I haven't spent enough time with this year. Um, I did have two other Atlas RPGs from this year that I also barely scratched the surface of. This is a bad. For me, it was either like I played an hour or two, or I played 120 hours. Like there wasn't really any in between with any of these games. Persona 3 Reload came
Hmm.
out earlier this year.
I
Did,
completely forgot about that, and I also barely played it.
yeah, seems like it's very positive. They made a lot of the kind of changes you would hope for them to make for this game from a quality of life standpoint to Tartarus to kind of the gameplay overall. It seems like they did a really great job kind of overall with that. And then SMT5 Vengeance came out this
Oh
year as well,
yeah.
which I wanted to play that, but that was another one of like, all right, especially with the new storylines and stuff like that, feel like I would really needed to spend a lot of time digging into that. I was really hoping to do that too because I didn't play it on Switch, which we talked about earlier this year. But it just didn't. Too many RPGs, not enough time. Was
Yeah.
really the short of 2024. Was just a lot of them coming out, and a lot of them were 100 something hours. So
I know why I forgot that one. It's because I purchased it and never even opened it.
oh, okay, there you go. Yeah,
Uh, Man,
yeah.
yeah,
Someday.
regrets someday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that sounds like that's all of our 2024 RPGs we played. Like we talked about, it's a really great year for RPGs. We kind of can't say that for a lot of these years, but we didn't even talk about like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. We didn't talk about
Mm.
half of the stuff that came out this year that we just didn't even come close to touching. Um, so our plates are going to be full for quite a while here. But let's start talking about some of the stuff we're looking forward to next year. Why don't you kind of run down your whole list here for me, Musa?
Okay,
I'll go
yeah,
second.
I'll do a I'll do a quick one. I wrote down like seven things, but um, I don't know much about the seven things.
Okay.
So we'll start out with all the HD remasters.
Hmm.
So you have now got me excited for the Dragon Quest games, but I've decided
Yes.
I'm waiting for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD,
Okay.
and then I will play Dragon Quest 3 HD.
I think that's
Um,
a good I think that's a good approach to them of kind of letting the full trilogy story kind of hit you in the intended
yeah,
order.
I feel, yeah, I just from hearing you talk about them and knowing what my free time is like, I feel like that's the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these next remasters, I can't promise I'm actually going to attempt to play, but they're ones that make me wish I had time to play. So one is Sudoku 1 and 2 HD.
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't played any of. I think the only Suikoden game I played was like 4 or 5, I think. I haven't played the first two, which people are always like Suikoden 2 is like the best
yeah,
JRPG on the PS1. I've never played it. I would love to play those, but those are big games, man.
yeah. Well, and my understanding is the first game is supposed to be not as long,
Oh,
and the
okay.
second game is the insanely giant one.
Right.
But I've never played a Sudoku game
Hmm.
either. And I'd really like to play those. Like I'm eyeing them, but
Yeah.
it is like, man, PS1 JRPG. Like that second game's going to be, 100 hours probably.
That's right.
Um,
Right.
and that first game, me saying it's not long, that might still be a 40 or 50-hour
Yeah, it's
game.
only 60 hours. It's fine.
Uh, and then the other one is they're coming out with the Lunar Remastered collection.
Yeah, I've
Um,
got that on my list too.
Yeah, those are I've played almost all of Lunar 2 and got to the final boss and unfortunately just didn't keep multiple saves and I was
Mm.
not high enough level to beat him. Um so that has always been a regret and somehow I never played the first one, but I bought the first one from Mackie like a decade ago.
Okay.
Uh
There you go.
so I have like the cool versions of them, but
Right.
like if they make a cool remastered thing with some quality of life or some just outright cheats, like that would be
Yeah.
great. I'd love to see those games through.
Yeah, I've never played either of the first two lunar games. Like I
Hmm.
those are real blind spots for me, especially with how much people really loved them. I kind of never got around to them on PS1. Part of it was those working designs, like big, expensive collections. I was like not in a place to afford those at the time. Um,
Yeah.
but part of it is just like was playing other stuff. I was probably playing Vagrant Story, knee deep in that complicated
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So it was a lot
Yeah.
of like, I
That's a
don't.
game that needs an HD remake.
Yeah, that's a game that needs like a little bit more tutorials and like a little bit smoothing over. That game's great, but like you play
Yeah.
with a walkthrough. That
Yeah.
game is daunting. But yeah,
I,
I'm also really excited for those because that's like the Dragon Quest games I've been talking about for a lot this year. Those are real blind spots for me, and I feel like they are such important, impactful JRPGs that I would really like to check them out.
yeah. Um, let's see. So on to actual new games. I am very curious about Hyper Light Breaker. Um,
Yes.
I
Yep.
think that's an RPG. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Hyperlight Drifter was kind of an RPG and kind of
Well,
like a
and I
hack and
think it's
slashy thing.
supposed. I think Hyper Light. I already
Breaker's
forgot what.
supposed to be like a roguelike RPG thing, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I was about to say it's supposed to be a different type of gameplay in
Hmm.
the same world, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, yeah, like I really like the art style of that. I was a Hyper
Hmm.
Light Drifter backer, even though I barely played the game.
Oh, that game's
Um,
great. Oof.
yeah,
Difficult,
like
but really good.
like I'm interested to see what people say about this game and see if I can get swept up in the hype.
Yeah.
Um, I'm I included this on my list, but I don't think I'm going to wind up playing it, which is Ghost of Yotai, if I
Yeah.
said that right.
Yep. I believe so.
Um, I really like Ghost of Tsushima. Um, I'm not sure if I said that right either at this point. Um, but I never beat it. Like I got
Mm,
to I think the last third of the island and then never finished it. And I always mean to go back and play like the PS5 version and that, and I don't know if I realistically ever will. And I love they're making another one of these, which makes me kind of want to play it. I'm just coming to terms with the actual. I say, if you listen to this to PUP throughout the year, you know I've been coming to terms with my actual free time
right.
that I can spend doing this stuff, and I
Right.
don't know that it's going to make the cut based on that.
Yeah. I
But
I'm excited for that too, even though I haven't played any of the first one. I have that downloaded on my PS5 because I it's on some tier of PS Plus.
mhm,
Um, but I those seem like games that I would really like if I can control myself from getting absolutely 100% of everything in that game. I really need to stop doing that in open world games.
yeah.
It seems like something I really like, especially watching those trailers for the second one. It's like, yeah, man, these look like cool games. I like these types of games.
I
So,
mean, honestly, the first one, like all the side stuff was great. Like
yeah.
I I can't offhand, I don't clearly remember it at this point. You know, that came out years ago, which is also crazy to think about. But um, like I remember liking most, if not all, the side stuff you can do in
Yeah.
that game, and I don't remember it being like really egregious in terms of quantity of content because
Okay.
it is by like the infamous guys, right? Like,
Yeah.
and those games always had big environments, but the infamous games, the side content wasn't the greatest, but there wasn't a massive amount
It
of
was
it either.
manageable, yeah.
Yeah, and like Ghost of Tsushima. Oh man, I need to. I don't remember Japanese anymore. Not that I ever really knew it, but I took a semester.
There you go.
Um, I don't remember what else I was gonna say, but it doesn't matter. So, moving on to two games that I will almost definitely play.
Hmm.
And that is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
Got that on my list
Um,
too.
I'm I'm a little skeptical it's going to be good.
It has
The
had a troubled development cycle, to put it mildly.
Well, it's like the first company that was working on it. Like I was reading up on that, and it sounds like their contract to make the game ran out, and it was chosen not to be renewed. Is kind
Right.
of what happened to that. And it also sounds like the main guy who is the big creative force behind it kind of quit before the game was done.
Mm.
So like a lot of that contributed to the original downfall, and then the Chinese room got to do it, and they are not making like a direct sequel; they're just making a spiritual successor to it.
Mm. Okay.
Um, and I feel like they released the demo and played it, and I played it, but maybe that may have just been me imagining it, and I just watched a YouTube video,
Well,
and it's
there's also been a lot of vampire masquerade and related sort of games over the last couple of years. So like, who knows how many of these games you played a demo of
that's
the
true.
Primogen or whatever. Like there've been a lot of them the last couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, what I remember was you're in a warehouse and this one vampire has cast a bunch of illusions on you that you got to kind of figure out and move around. And
Hmm.
it was not like, to be blunt, it wasn't great.
Right.
Um, but the Chinese room made Dear Esther, so I want to really give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Um, and it is a series that I think has a lot of potential to be great. Um, Whether it will or not, I don't know. But I am deathly curious as to what this game is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the last game on my list is a game by Harebrained Schemes called Graft. Um, and Harebrained Schemes are the guys who made the recent BattleTech game and the Shadowrun games. Um, Graft is a survival horror game that looks like it's kind of in that engine where you're in a space station. Um, and I adore, I never got good at the BattleTech game, but I love the Shadowrun games, and these guys kind of have a free pass for me for the moment, assuming they're not, releasing something weird like that AR game they made with the real life pieces. Like I'm sure that thing was great, but I just give me the
Not for
video
you.
game. Yeah. Um, and they just announced this like a month or two ago, but it looks freaking cool to me. And I don't they haven't released much on gameplay and all that yet, but I'm just in from the get go. And this will probably be a day one for me.
Yeah.
Um,
After how cool the Shadowrun trilogy was, like they've earned a lot of goodwill, I think.
yeah, and they don't unfortunately have the license to Shadowrun or BattleTech anymore. And
Right.
Jordan, I want to say Jordan Weiss. I feel like that's a Dragonlance guy though, so I feel like I'm wrong. But his name's Jordan something. He was the creator of those original things, and he left to start his own company. And like his company and Hairbrain Schemes are still very supportive of each other. And
Mm.
like Hairbrain does a lot of really cool, innovative staff. Like, and I discovered that just from backing those games and reading the behind the scenes stuff and watching a lot of the YouTube videos they released. So I got a lot of confidence that at minimum Graft is going to be decent. So
Yeah, somehow I hadn't heard about that, but that's anything Hairbrain is putting out seems like something you should keep your eyes on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any other games you want to talk about?
Yeah, I have Claire Obscure Expedition 33. That is that French studio that's making a turn-based RPG that also has a timing-based element. So if you're kind of thinking of God, what was that Xbox 360 game with the ring that closes that you do the timing on? It has those really sad visual novel stories in it. Um, the Lost Odyssey. Um,
Oh
reminds me a lot of
man.
Lost Odyssey.
Yeah.
That kind of like feeling. Gorgeous looking trailer so far. Looks like a really great kind of like a lot of stuff they've shown is like this beautiful overgrown jungle and stuff like that. So I always really like seeing um, when first time developers, especially, kind of show their influences on their sleeves a lot. And this is very much like we love turn based JRPGs, we love this kind of timing based thing. Here's the thing we're making. It also seems to be a budget title and seems to be a shorter game, which seems really great because like we talked about this year, I can probably fit a 20-hour game in. I don't think I can fit a 120-hour game in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's Claire Obscure Expedition 33. I think that looks really cool.
Man, I'm
Um,
watching a gameplay thing for it. This thing looks awesome.
yeah, I'm very, very, very curious to see what they come out with. So, that game looks really cool. um, Kind of an RPG, Assassin's Creed Shadows. That
Hmm.
got delayed from November 2024 or something to early 2025. Um, I haven't played an Creed game in a while. I didn't play Mirage, and I didn't finish the Viking one, Valhalla, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm a little burnt out on Assassin's Creed, so I didn't check out Mirage, and I'm super burned out on Valhalla. Those games are just too big by this point, as much as I really love them. And I'm like one of the five people on the planet that likes the modern day Assassin's Creed stuff. So I'm kind of interested to see that. But it takes place in such a different setting, and it has the two characters, and looks like it has a pretty different gameplay style from some of the other ones. So I'm pretty curious about this. I hope that it turns out well. There's another one that I'm gonna keep an eye on. Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I like all of these games. This is gonna be another spin-off game where you're playing as Majima, washed up in Hawaii with a case of amnesia, and just like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. It's not a turn-based RPG. It's gonna be the kind of beat 'em up RPG, like the mainline previous Yakuza ones. Um, Seems really cool. Has like, Assassin's Creed Black Flag pirate ship sailing and battling systems, which is really wild. It's just, I love these games so much. I love that it's just like, yeah, you battle in pirate ships and you sail them. It's like, yep, sure, why not? You have a little tiger baby friend and you dress it up. Yeah, sure, okay, why not? Great, let's do all of that. Sure. So I'm not watching too much stuff in this about this because I know I'm just gonna pick it up, and I like taking the trip on these games where it's like, oh yeah, this one has mahjong, it doesn't have the kart racing, but maybe it has the, this sort of mini game in it, and all right, sure, why not? So I'm looking forward to that one. Um, this one has a pretty big question mark on it for a number of reasons that are probably pretty obvious, but Borderlands 4 question mark. Big one is I don't know when that's going to come out. The other big question is I don't know how I feel about Borderlands in 2024 and 2025. Um, it seemed like them making another Borderlands game after 3 was a foregone conclusion. I could stomach very little of Borderlands 3, and if they don't make radical changes to Borderlands for 4, I probably won't even pick it up. That is a series that 1 and 2 and pre-sequel I really loved. Those are such a time and place series of games that when 3 came out and was largely the same, sort of from a gameplay and humor standpoint, you gotta do something way different for 4. So I hope they know that, and I hope that they can do something pretty different. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So that also makes me think. I didn't have it on my list. I don't think it has even a release window. The Outer Worlds 2. I don't
Oh,
think that's
jeez.
coming out in 2025, but that's another one too to watch. Of like, I liked that first one just well enough, and you're gonna put out another one. I'll keep a close eye on that one. That one could be cool.
Well,
But
it has a website, but yeah, no release window on the
okay,
website.
so maybe late 2025 at the
Maybe
earliest.
saying website is a strong word. It's splash page
That's
with
right.
a announcement teaser.
There you go. Well, it's something. Um, Next game, one I'm really looking forward to, Citizen Sleeper 2. Um,
Oh man.
the most tabletop RPG of RPGs, which I will forever apologize for calling a visual novel. That the developer is correct; they are tabletop RPGs. Um, I really loved that first one. I have played that first one to completion. I don't know how many times. I got the platinum on PS5 after doing all of the endings on the Xbox version. Really, really, really excited for this one. It seems to be just slightly bigger enough in a way that I think is really interesting, um, and seems to have more things to do, more party members, other than just your first one in the first game. I am deathly curious to find out uh, kind of where this game goes after the ending, the various endings of the first one that led into this one, and also kind of the lessons that the developers took away from that first one and kind of how you expand this second one. So I really, really pumped. We already talked about Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D. Looking forward to playing those games again. Demon School. If anyone hasn't heard of Demon School, this is a I don't
Oh
even
yeah, that game looks awesome.
I don't even know. I don't even remember who's making. Oh, Necrosoft is making this. It is a kind of horror-based, high school-based, turn-based strategy RPG that seems really great. They call it a spooky tactical RPG. Um, Seems really neat. Seems like it's kind of taking a bunch of different tacks on this genre and kind of giving it a really, really neat art style and some really cool mechanics. So if you haven't seen Demon's Soul, there was a demo out there for a while that I'm not sure if it's out anymore. I haven't played it yet though because I just want to pick this game up when it comes out and check it out. Demon School seems really, really neat if you haven't checked it out. And last but certainly not least for me, Destiny 2 Codename Apollo. This is the first big revamped expansion that Bungie says they're coming out with around summer of 2025, where the game is largely going to be kind of redone, revamped, sort of revisited for a lot of this stuff, and I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do to kind of take Destiny 2 from where it is to maybe the next step of where it really needs to be. So we don't really have a ton of info right now, other than you're going to a brand new planet, and they're the big thing that they're trying to focus on for story progression is Metroidvania progression, where you can kind of pick story missions in any order you want that unlocks something that will take you to other areas to kind of continue to sort of pick story missions where you want and go in whatever order you want, which on paper sounds really interesting. So, and they're doing a lot of nuts and bolts stuff of like, we're redoing armor, we're redoing stats, we're redoing a whole bunch of kind of foundational base level systems for Destiny 2, which really needs to happen for a series that is 10 years old. That is, some of these systems are older, and they're talking about putting armor sets in, which is a fairly standard thing for loot games, and Destiny doesn't have them. So that in and of itself would be a pretty big, pretty major change here. So we'll see. We'll see what's coming down the pipe for Destiny 2. I'm sure, though, that Musum and I missed something here. So if we missed anything really cool that you're looking forward to, or anything obvious that we probably have been talking about for 6 months, and when we made this list we totally forgot we're excited for, that's hit us up, especially on the Discord server, discord.tvgp.tv, and tell us what RPGs you're looking forward to, or the comments of this video too. Don't forget, any episode of this and anything that goes onto the public feed on the TVGP feed, we have a video version for too. We're watching trailers and playing gameplay for this stuff while we're talking about it. So check out all that stuff. Musum, where can we find you online?
You can find me on my link tree, linktr.ee/John Musum, JOHNMUSIM, and that'll have linked to my social stuff and all my music stuff.
You can find me at campsite.bio/Janston, excuse me, JANSTEN. We've been recording for a lot today, so my voice is starting to get crispy. I think that's about it. Really quickly, though, want to thank everyone for listening this year. We have a very great community across all of the shows, but especially this show, where we are laser focused on kind of one sub genre here. So we really appreciate that everybody has been listening and hopefully enjoying these shows over the last year. And we're not only looking forward to the games excuse me, the RPGs of 2025, but talking about them with everybody here from the community. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.